It's late in the evening, and you're standing in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing your teeth. You pause. You look at your face a little longer than usual. Not fixing anything. Just checking. You wonder how you come across. Whether you seem okay. Whether something looks off. Nothing is actually wrong. But the checking happens anyway. Why does that keep happening? For a lot of people, this shows up as a quiet habit of looking back at yourself, your words, your tone, your expressions, your choices, just to make sure you're still okay. This video is about why that pattern forms, why it sticks around, and what's really going on underneath it. When people talk about checking yourself, they're usually not talking about confidence or insecurity in a big dramatic way. It's more subtle than that. It's when your first experience doesn't feel complete until it's confirmed. When your own sense of "I'm fine" doesn't quite land unless something outside you reflects it back. One common reason is that you learned early on to monitor how you came across. Maybe it wasn't harsh. Maybe no one criticized you directly. But there were reactions you learned to watch for, small shifts in tone, facial expressions, pauses. Over time, your attention moved outward. You learned to read the room before you trusted yourself. So now, even when you're alone, your mind keeps scanning. Did that land right? Did I come off okay? Did I miss something? It can look like checking your reflection, rereading messages, replaying conversations. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because awareness became a form of safety. Sometimes, it comes from moments where feedback mattered more than your inner sense. If your choices were often adjusted, improved, or corrected, even gently, you may have learned that your first version wasn't final. You might have learned to wait for confirmation before relaxing. So your system keeps checking in. Am I still acceptable? Am I still aligned? It's less about approval, and more about certainty. That's why the checking doesn't stop even when no one is watching. The habit learned to live inside you. Over time, another layer shows up when you've been unsure for a long stretch. When life feels unclear, your internal reference point can get quieter. Decisions pile up. Energy thins out. And instead of trusting a steady inner signal, you start using yourself as a question mark. You check how you look, how you sound, how you feel, hoping something will tell you that you're on solid ground. So the mirror becomes a checkpoint. Your reflection becomes a quick scan for reassurance. Not because you're focused on appearance, but because you're looking for orientation. It's not vanity. It's a search for steadiness. There's also a quieter reason this habit sticks around. In other cases, it grows out of being very self-aware. You notice details. You reflect. You think before you act. That sensitivity can be a strength, but when it goes unchecked, it turns inward too often. Instead of helping you adjust thoughtfully, it keeps you looping. So you keep checking. Did I seem calm? Did I look tired? Did I sound strange? Eventually, the checking stops being useful and starts being automatic. It doesn't mean you don't know who you are. It means you've been relying on observation instead of trust. Here's what this can look like in real life. It's a normal afternoon, maybe around 3:30. You walk past a window and catch your reflection. You slow down just enough to look. Your face feels neutral, but your chest tightens a little anyway. You think, do I look tense? Do I seem off? You adjust your posture slightly. Maybe your expression. Then you keep walking, but the feeling lingers. Nothing happened. No one said anything. But you checked. If you've been there, you're not strange. You might know someone who lives like this. This is what self-checking looks like when it's quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It just asks for reassurance in small, constant ways. And the strange part is, it rarely works. Even when the reflection looks fine, the relief doesn't last. Because the question wasn't really about how you looked. It was about whether you could trust yourself without proof. When this pattern runs for a long time, it can slowly wear you down. You spend more energy monitoring than living. You become both the person and the observer of the person. And that distance can make you feel slightly removed from yourself, even on good days. Not broken. Just tired. There's a gentle way to relate to this habit differently. Instead of asking, "How do I look?" you might notice the moment and ask, "What am I checking for right now?" Not to answer perfectly. Just to name it. Sometimes the answer is comfort. Sometimes it's certainty. Sometimes it's permission to relax. That small pause matters because it shifts the habit from automatic to aware. You're no longer just checking, you're noticing why. Another quiet approach is to reduce how often you return to the mirror, not by forcing yourself away, but by anchoring elsewhere. For example, after you catch your reflection, you might ground yourself in one internal fact. Something simple and real. I'm standing here. I'm breathing. I know what I'm doing next. Nothing motivational. Nothing dramatic. This works because it gives your system something solid that doesn't depend on appearance or feedback. It reminds you that you exist even when you're not being evaluated. There's also value in letting the image be incomplete. You don't need to look settled to be settled. You don't need to look confident to be allowed to move on. Letting the reflection be just a reflection, and not a verdict, can soften the habit over time. But there's one detail people often miss. This checking didn't start because something is wrong with you. It started because your mind learned a way to stay safe. At some point, watching yourself closely made sense. It helped you adapt. It helped you belong. It helped you avoid missteps. The habit stayed, not because it's useful now, but because it was useful then. So when you notice yourself checking again, it doesn't have to turn into frustration or self-criticism. It can be a quiet recognition: this is an old pattern showing up. And patterns soften faster when they're seen without pressure. This is for people who look fine on the outside, but keep checking inside. Not because they're unsure of everything, but because they've been relying on confirmation for a long time. You don't need to force trust. You don't need to stop checking overnight. Sometimes it's enough to notice the moment, name it gently, and keep going anyway. And if this felt familiar, you're welcome to stay here for more quiet explanations like this.